what is going on in the brain when someone is having a psychedelic experience? I know that's a very broad question.
It is a broad question. It does vary from medicine to medicine, but I'm going to talk just high level, take this as a general answer, and there are differences between psychedelics. But at the first thing that happens is what we think of as the default mode network, that front of our brain, the inner narrator that is constantly telling us you're not enough, you need to do more. That's quieted down. And when that happens, many people experience this feeling of the weight of the world being lifted off their shoulders and this kind of eerie quietness of, ooh, wow, it's calmer. The Then what starts to happen is neurons that haven't fired together in a long time start to fire. Um, and this allows connections to be made that aren't normally made. So the analogy that I love is you're skiing down a mountain, and as we get older, we keep skiing down the same track over and over and over until to the point where we can't ski down any other part of the mountain. We forgot that it's there. The psychedelic puts a fresh coat of powder. Now all of a sudden we can ski across the mountain and we remember, oh, I don't have to think about this the way I've been thinking about it. I can think about it this way or that way. Um, and what's kind of amazing about psychedelics is you can remember what you thought about later. And that's when we get into how do you implement change. But so that happens where these neurons start firing, your brain lights up, which is incredible. Many people at this point also have some type of, again, depending on how much you take, some type of spiritual experience where they feel that they're not separate and apart from nature, but that they are nature. And that while we are different waves, we're all part of the same ocean. And that there is something else out there, that some creator spirit source thing that is that connects us all and that we come from. Um, and depending again on why you've taken it, that can be really comforting, especially for those of us who are experiencing loneliness, to feel like we're not alone in the universe. And then the other thing that happens is it turns off, some of these medicines turn off shame, blame, and guilt and allow us to relook at things that have happened in our lives with a fresh pair of eyes and a no bad anyone mentality. Oh wow, I did do this and I wasn't acting as aware or awake as I wish I was, but that's okay. I now see that and now I can make amends or move forward or forgive in many cases. And all of those things together is kind of, yeah, what makes these really, really powerful medicines for anything that involves repetitive thinking patterns. So obviously we can talk about depression or anxiety, but we can also talk about how these are being used for OCD, for eating disorders, for substance use challenges, for autism, really anything that has repetitive thinking at its core. The psychedelic can break up and show us a different way. And then we enter into the integration period where we now have to remind ourselves and teach ourselves to operate with that new framework.
Has your research changed, Matt, how you think human beings create meaning? There's a
Mm.
whole crisis of meaning at the moment people often talk about. People can't find a sort of meaningful existence. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to, again, speaking for the eye, I really don't know from a scientific perspective how these medicines add meaning, but I do know is this. I do know that these tools, I'm going to go back to the word entheogen because historically that's the only use. They were used in spiritual practice going back thousands of years. And let me just actually stick on this for a moment. There are cave paintings in Africa that are thousands of years old that show mushroom shaman. There are Siberian shaman. There are history in China, in India, all throughout Europe. We know how many witches were burned for their uses of plant medicine. We know Central America, South America. We've all read in our history books about the Native Americans and their use of peyote. But I bring this up to just take a moment to remind us all that we all have a psychedelic lineage. Now, the church and the state tried to suppress it, and with really, really harsh penalties, death, flogging, terrible, terrible things. If these weren't effective, that would have put an end to him, but it didn't. This again, religion with no name has never stopped operating. It didn't stop in the last 50 years of prohibition. It didn't stop in the 400 years of colonialism. It didn't stop as Christianity and Islam spread throughout the world. It continued. Um, so I bring that up as a kind of an encouragement to it. These aren't just for our Native American and Indigenous brothers and sisters. We all have a right to these tools. For me, the meaning of this, when I connected with Source in a way that I didn't understand, there was meaning there. There's just meaning immediately. And and then when I started unpacking who I am and got down to at my core, I'm just this loving ball of light. And then everything stacks on top. Every story is a layer on top of that ball of light. Who I am, what my personality is, what my job is, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a friend, I'm a this and the other thing. There's story upon story upon story. And I have the opportunity to choose what story. This is my life. I have lots of
Mm.
opportunity to shift and to change things, and to take responsibility. So for me, the meaning, it just became apparent. And every time I sit with these medicines, I reconnect with my sacred, and I get a chance to look back inside and see what am I not aware of right at this moment that maybe I should work on for the next few months.
There's so many powerful implications in what you just said there, Matt. My therapy hat is screaming. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. So it's what I took from that is the meaning was created very quickly for you the less you identified with your ego and the more you identified with being one or a part of something greater than yourself, which I think is so
Absolutely.
interesting, right? In terms of the meaning crisis of the 21st century, it's like we're sort of set up to bolster our ego, status and money and whatever. They like, look at me, look at me, look at me. And it's just, it's so fragile. And the more we can break that down, even though that's quite scary. And, therapy would sort of do that in a very systematic way. But sometimes people can feel that that takes too long. Uh, is a sort of coming back to this awareness of uh, the ocean in a drop. So I suppose
Hmm.
is what I took from what you were saying.
I really like all of that. I think I have an 18 and a 20-year-old, and I think about the soup that they swim in. And part of me says, oh my goodness, what an incredible time to be alive that we have so much abundance, so much abundance with security around housing and food and all of our needs that we can focus on what we want to be called. I think it's beautiful. And we have time to identify as this, that, or the other thing. I think it's all beautiful. And I do worry sometimes that they spend a lot of time trying to change the road ahead of them versus changing how they perceive the road. Um, and and how sometimes it's like, I'm not feeling well, and I'm going to get a prescription for you. I need you to change the way you address me for me to feel better. So I don't love that piece of this, but I do
Yes.
love the individualism and the expression that's there. Um, I'll take this on a quick side journey here around the block. I also really do believe what this isn't an accident that we're having this conversation tonight. It's not an accident that these medicines are coming back up at the same time that AI is coming up, at the same time that
Mm,
renewable energy is getting cheaper, at the same time that vertical farming is using 95% less water and 97% less land, at the same time as we're learning how to grow meat in labs, at the same
mm,
time as nanotechnology is making our great impacts in human longevity. At it's an incredible time to be alive, and when we get to this point where our needs are even more met, and the need to make money as we have, the need to live in a scarcity based in culture goes away. Well, that again, we then What is the meaning behind why are we here? What does it mean to be connected? What does it mean to do anything? Becomes more important of a question. And we don't spend enough time at all in our schools talking about this. We don't have it in our lives talking about this. So again, just couldn't be more excited to be alive right this second while all of these things are conspiring to make the world a better place.